I really think that relaxation is the key to play with a good articulation, good sound. When I tense with extensions, my sound changes, because if I tense here, it transfers to the body. The whole body is a little bit more locked, more tense.
Welcome to another episode of Contrebasse Conversations, your show covering life on the low end of the spectrum. I'm your host, Jason Heath. So glad to have you here today. And visit our site at ContrebasseConversations.com for all the details about what's going on here. And I'd love to hear from you. Reach out, send me an email, feedback@ContrebasseConversations.com. That would be great. I know you're going to love today's episode featuring Marcos Machado. Marcos is the bass professor at the University of Southern Mississippi, and he has just started to release his 4-volume set, The Tao of Bass. So we dig into this set of technique materials. They are such a fascinating set of books. I got the first volume here in front of me. I've been working through it. Very, very cool. We talk about that. We talk about how he's answering questions on his YouTube channel, using the third finger and how it's our secret weapon for so many things, suppleness in bass playing, learning not to fight your own intuition, why Marcos doesn't have pieces with fingerings already written in. He doesn't just have copies of the Bottesini Concerto and all these pieces with fingerings he passes down. He works through them with every single student. Such a fascinating interview. I know you're really going to enjoy it. And I'd like to take a moment and thank D'Addario Strings for sponsoring Contrebasse Conversations and let you know about our latest giveaway for Helicore strings. Go to ContrebasseConversations.com/strings and register for a chance to win a set of orchestra, pizzicato, or hybrid strings from D'Addario. And all D'Addario strings are designed, engineered, and crafted in New York. They come in orchestral, hybrid, and pizzicato versions. Check them out, and thank you for sponsoring the podcast. I'd also like to thank Bass Capos for providing hosting for the podcast. And Bass Capos are an excellent choice for any bass player looking to implement a double bass extension. They're easy to install and adjust, cheaper and more reliable than hand-built latches, light and quick to operate. You can learn more at basscapos.com. We will feature a few excerpts from Marcos performing, and you can find much more at marcosmachado.com, his website, link in the show notes. And one quick note before we begin, we talk about Alex. I don't mention who that is in the interview. That's Alex Ritter, a fellow Brazilian bass player and previous podcast guest. You can find Alex's episode at ContrebasseConversations.com/Alex Ritter. So that's who that mysterious Alex is. Really hope you enjoy this conversation with Marcos Machado. Okay, so you wrote this, or you finished it while you were on sabbatical, or maybe you did a lot of the writing on sabbatical, but...
Yeah, the writing. I had everything on manuscripts.
Okay.
So the sabbatical, I took the time to put on Finale, on Sibelius.
Okay.
You know, to get the finished product, yeah.
Okay, cool. But this is probably the culmination of years of...
This is 20 years plus, man, of me, scratching my head about, the best left-hand approach for the bass, yes.
Okay, cool. So is it mostly left-hand oriented, or how's it laid out?
This is a 4-volume book, okay?
Okay.
The book that came out is left-hand, so it deals exclusively with left-hand. In a couple of months, I would... release the volume 2 that is going to deal with scales, arpeggios, chromatic etudes.
Okay.
It's a very complete scale system, I would say, different than what we are used to. And volume 3 is going to be a bow book. Also my kind of unique approach, not the regular, bow variations, Savicek or Zimmerman, not quite that on that vein. And the last volume is the technique applied. So I will put lots of Bach suites, Bottesini concertos, and arpeggioni, Cesar Franck, all these to show how I approach those with this technique. So it's a 4-volume work. Yeah.
Cool. When did you get the idea of, because I think all of us, like I have all these exercises I like to do with my students, right?
Yes,
it's like I pick and choose from this and that, but I think so few people actually that's a massive undertaking, putting together something like that. Like, when did you get the idea to actually put it together into this kind of form?
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, man, when I was a student, I would carry around, tons of books, my Rabbath Volume 3 and Petrarchy and you name it. I would carry that around, and I always imagined a book that would be a little bit more compact. In one book I could find, pivots, crabs, low tone position, scales. So that's how the idea was born, to have a book that I would love to have when I was a student. That was the main concept, and also put forth my approach to the bass, to the left hand.
Okay. Cool. And now so you grew up in Brazil, right?
Yes.
And then you ended up studying with Rabbath, right? Was that the next step for you, like Brazil and then Paris?
No. Okay. I studied with in the southern Brazil, same place as Alex Hitler. He did an interview with you. Yeah. So the same teacher, great teacher, Masciadri, Milton Masciadri Senior, and through him, I came to Georgia to study with his son at the University of Georgia. Okay. And that was a coincidence, because I came to study with him, but I was already aware of Rabbath and his approach and all that. And on my first year there at Georgia, Rabbath came as a guest. Okay. And then we hooked, was an instant, friendship and all that. And after I finished in Georgia, I went to Champaign, Urbana. Mm-hmm. I did my doctorate there with a Cameron, lots of contemporary music and that. But I always kept traveling to Paris. I took a semester off to be in Paris with François. Mm-hmm. And I also, of course, I'm a Rabbath student, but I've also borrowed from other people. I had many lessons with Duncan McTeer. Mm-hmm. I studied in Italy with Petrarchy and all that. So it's a mix. I always remember one time when I was a student, I played for Barbet, Thierry Barbet, and he was like, "Man, your left hand looks like François, your bow looks like Petrarchy, and your phrasing, and who are you?" and I loved that. But that's the idea, was to have a more global way of thinking, of playing the bass.
Yeah. Now that's awesome that they had all that experience, like Duncan McTeer, and then working with Petrarchy too.
And Duncan and Petrarchy was on the same year, man. So it's very interesting to go back and forth.
Yeah. How did those two approaches differ? Like, what was that like?
Well, it's pretty different, I would say, if you're talking left hand, Duncan has a different system of left hand, and Petrarchy likes sometimes big blocks. Yeah, he plays with his positions, the famous chromatic, semi-chromatic, diatonic positions, and McTeer it moves more on tone position. He plays a little bit, I would say, more cellistic, a little bit more 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2, this kind of fingering, and Petrarchy it's more heavy on the thumb application. Yeah. So that's a difference. And also style and bow techniques are very different. So both are fantastic. I love both guys. Yeah.
Well, and how cool to just sit down and amalgamate these styles together. Because, with my students, I start out with, I've totally adopted the Rabbath 6-position system. It just makes so much sense with the harmonics. Yes. But then I break out the Petrarchy book and I say, well, now let's look at how it applies, and I like both approaches, but how do you maybe just talk us through, because this first book's the left-hand approach, right?
Yes, left-hand.
Yeah, maybe talk through what are the steps that you go through in the book,
Okay. The book it has 3 main sections. Okay. The first big section is around what I call traditional technique. So it's lots of endurance and I would say coordination, very tricky, very innocent looking exercises. But when I do masterclass, even like the pros get confused, so it's to get this very solid, the traditional position, that the 1-2-4, 1-3-4, whatever you prefer to use. Then the second big chunk of the book, it's my thing, that is the 4-finger technique, but never with extension. I only use extensions to play double stops. And even if I'm playing half steps, I pivot. And it's the same approach. Is all permutations you can possibly imagine for that. Little etudes, little exercise to get that very loose and consistent. And the third section of the book is the thumb position. And what I would say is different. It's a very complete system. I have 18, 19 thumb positions. Petrarch has the chromatic, the semi-chromatic, and the diatonic, right? And I expand that for 18 or 19 positions that I use on thumb position. And in combination with that, I immediately start using the crab technique. I don't treat it as something very special because if you look in the past, or if you look in cello playing, it's very normal for them. Some of cellos they call testando technique is so it's something that we bass players have some kind of psychological issue with. So on the book, I immediately start showing that with simple exercises, so you get comfortable. Also, I do lots of fan, the technique that the thumb stays and you open and close the hand to play quick passages. And this is I borrowed that from Boccherini. The cellist Boccherini used to. If you look at the concerto in B flat, you have to have that technique to successfully play that piece. So that's the main 3 chunks of the book, but it's massive, man. It's like 500 exercises.
So that's called the fan, where you open up, like you got your thumb on the G and you open up to the D. Okay.
Yes, that's what François came with that name. But actually, it's any finger. I use. I could use like a thumb 1, 2, 2. 3-3. It depends on what I'm looking in terms of phrasing, in terms of colors. But it's not only the 3 that goes to harmonic. It can be a 2 that goes to, I don't know, a C sharp if I need. It's a very flexible technique.
Okay, cool.
It's very cool, man.
Cool. Well, I love what you're doing. You're like answering questions on the site. You got the website. I was watching through some of the videos, so that's awesome.
That just started this week, I think 2 days ago or yesterday maybe, and I hope to have many questions. I know that there is a student that contacted me. He wants to ask about excerpts. How do I? And that's the main thing. All this approach makes playing of excerpts easier. Usually people think, oh, this is to play solos, this is to play, Bach and I don't know, Bottesini, but I see completely different. This is really opens up for orchestra playing, to play excerpts. So I hope people ask about that. I can demonstrate that.
Well, I'll be sure to link up so that folks can check out, because what a great idea. It's like it makes the book kind of like a living document, sort of.
Exactly. That's what I want. Yeah.
It's so cool. Well, and the thing about the excerpts, it just opens up the possibilities of the bass. I mean, when I start working with students and start doing like going through the Rabbath positions and showing them how you can go across the bass and start showing them Petrarchy, and then we break out any piece of traditional repertoire. It's like all of a sudden there are so many possibilities you might not have thought of,
Yes, exactly. Especially, if you're thinking about Mozart passages, For Mozart, Mendelssohn and all those very articulated and clean. It's wonderful what the possibilities that I usually show. 10, 15 fingerings for Mozart 35 or stuff like this, because the hand becomes very, I would say, smart. That's the best way to put. You want a smart hand,
So this is great. I've got all sorts of questions about like what's it. I'd love to maybe hear a little bit more about the 4-finger technique. Like where do you adopt that on the bass? Do you start like half first position? You're doing 4-finger technique, or how does that work for you?
That varies. It varies from student to student. To me, I started like on the block position where you have the D, and I gradually, when I was a student, I gradually move down. But now I'm very comfortable with in half position, even playing like a flat to a C or to a C sharp. And the trick is that the 4-finger technique is never. I repeat that because that's a very important concept. I never extend. I rarely extend. So it's very loose. And usually with students, I start on the block position, because it's very comfortable. It's very easy. It's like a cello, right? Yeah. And when I have students complaining, I always mention to them, man, look at this little, virtuoso Asian cellist, small girl playing cello like a pro. And if you make a proportion, it's the same, and it's the pivot and the torque. Is the weight of the arm. That's a concept that people forget too. It's not only pivoting, but also torquing the hand, displacing the weight of the hand.
Right.
So that's
and that's like a concept like talking to cellists about technique. They really extend much more than we do, right? Like we do the pivot because if we get that locked feeling, if we have, I mean, it just causes so many issues if we.
That's true. That you nailed. I think the cellists they extend too much, and especially when they do the lower extension, that they do this.
Yeah.
I think it's quite tense. I think the people who are using pivot, and there are many people using, I think is a smarter way to approach, because sometimes I'm using crazy stuff. I'm using like minor third, but on the motion, if you take a picture or if you stop that frame, my hand is always relaxed. It's never,
right.
And that's the main concept. The hand is always super supple and relaxed.
By pivoting, I mean, you have your thumb, you learn those distances, and your thumb is like your reference point. So, and that's the thing, like you look at François playing or people who, or you're playing, and the hand always looks relaxed. There's never tension when you're doing these motions.
Yes, exactly. And that's the goal. I really think that relaxation is the key to play with a good articulation.
Yeah.
Okay. Good sound. When I tense with extensions, my sound changes, because if I tense here, it transfers to the body. The whole body is a little bit more locked, more tense. So I think it should be very loose, and that I learned from François. He's playing these big sounds, and then he would ask me to touch, and it's very light. The whole body is supple, and Petrarch is like that too. They are very supple, and that's why the guys are 80 and still playing. That tells you a lot.
For sure.
The main difference I would say, Jason, with François is that I use lots of third finger, lots and lots and lots. I'm a truly, believer that the third finger is a kind of a secret weapon for us to play, Mozart and you name it.
Well, that's something I'd love to dig into because, like, when I was talking to Alex, he was mentioning, like the whole belay approach and the 1-3-4 versus 1-2-4. And I've always used third finger. I played electric bass, and then I studied with Jeff Braditich, who's a big fan of third finger.
Yeah,
but
it was great. Yeah.
How did you study belay when you were younger?
I started with belay.
Okay,
and then gradually I moved towards to the cimando. So right now I would say my main technique is, if I'm playing like relaxed, traditional technique is cimando 1-2, but I'm very flexible going back and forth.
Yeah.
For instance, if I play a major scale, okay, I will play two. Let's say using open strings. I would use C major 2-0-1-2. 0-1-3-4 for that leading tone. But if I'm playing mixolydian mode, of course I'm gonna play 2-0-1-2-0-1-2-4 for the B flat. So that back and forth 2-4 3-4, that interchange I do a lot.
Okay.
Because I really believe it's what makes your playing more flexible, right? Yeah. Using both equally. They're all equal. I used to do this to entertain my students. I would get two notes and I start trilling, and I'm gonna trill with all combinations. So I start with 1-4, 1-3, 1-2, and then thumb 4, thumb 3, and the trill it's non-stop, to show that the flexibility and the easy, the suppleness of the hand. I really strong believer of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's what a cool approach. And it's like that. I was talking with Alex about that, like a harmonic approach to 1-2 versus 1-3. Like you were saying, like the major versus the mixolydian. They're picking it for harmonic reasons.
Yes, of course. I for the jazz players is fantastic because you can actually see all the modes easy. If you let's say if I start with 2, I know all the modes. I can use, I don't know, for jazz guys out there, you can use like a Lydian, mixolydian mode, sharp 4, flat 7. So you play like 2-4, 1-3-4, 1-2-4. So it opens up your whole thinking. And I actually had a student, orchestra player, who did an analysis of orchestra excerpts this way, approaching more harmonically, not only a bunch of notes, but and he fingered accordingly to the harmony of the passage. It's a very interesting project he did.
It's interesting. I've been ever since talking with Alex. I'd never really thought about that, using that, but I've been playing around with that myself, and it makes a lot of sense. It really it's a very organic way to approach the left hand and different passages. Yes.
I really treat each finger equally, and that's the main thing on the book, is to help developing strength and coordination. Equally. Yeah. So my third finger is the same strength as the fourth. Even when I'm teaching vibrato, many people like to, your second finger has this type of vibrato, right? Fourth finger has a little bit narrow and thinner. What I do and what I practice a lot is to have the same. The same. My vibrato, you can't tell, I hope. And the goal is to have like a vibrato like Daniel Shafran, the great Russian cellist, that his vibrato with the thumb sounds like a huge second finger. He's unbelievable, man, the guy. So that's the whole approach.
So the first book's out now. It's already available. Yes. And then the second book, when's the second book going to come out?
I think the second book, a couple months next semester. Okay. And that is a scale book. Okay. As I told you before, it's a very complete system. It's only C major. I have 70 pages only on C major.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yes.
And that's something that I know that Rabbath is known for, and Rabbath students, is playing scales with as many different finger combinations as possible. Is that kind of the approach you took with the scales?
No. Okay. Actually, it has only one page with fingerings, because fingerings are super personal, right? And if you understand the volume 1, you will figure out fingerings very easy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The main thing with fingerings that I teach here is pivot points.
Mm-hmm.
It's and that I learned from John Patitucci, watching him, like the way he fingered the bass. Sometimes he changes blocks by repeating a finger. Let's say he's playing G major. He's going to play G, open A, B, C with 2, and then he shifts with 1, or he shifts 1-1. G, A, B with 1, and C with 1. It depends of what type of grouping you want. So more that kind of concept, but not the volume 2 will not deal with fingerings, because fingerings are out there already. They are on the air, actually. Right? Rabbath did. Levinson has a wonderful book with, many fingerings for it's more about patterns and sequences, scale sequences. So it's a pretty unique. I think it's a new approach for scales.
Yeah, no,
to make scales fun.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, you lay out your approach to the left hand in the first book, and then it's just the material, and then you interpret that second book based on Okay, interesting.
Exactly, that's the approach. So the second book is an organic continuation of the first one. Okay,
cool. I'm super excited. I love it's great. I also love the whole video idea, and I'll make sure that I link up to point people to that so that they can ask some questions. And I just love the name. You've got a nice philosophy statement on about that. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about the philosophy?
Yeah. Well, the Tao, it's hard to explain, because the Tao is something undefinable, right?
Yeah.
I'm just me trying to define the Tao. I'm going against it, but basically it's a non-dogmatic approach. That's the main, no dogmas. Because usually what I see on the bass world is they dwell in the past a little bit too much. They transfer tradition just because I studied with so-so, who studied with so-so, with studied, they go all the way back in history, and with lots of dogmas, right? You know that. Oh, don't use this, don't do that, or Rabbath thing is bad for soloists. Oh, Edgar Meyer is this, and don't, this is going to hurt you. So the whole Tao approach is a little bit non-dogmatic, okay, and aims for a simplicity, I would say, and it's kind of teaching you not to fight your own intuition and your own characteristics. Each of my students, you would not believe, man. I had 2 students playing the Bottesini concerto. One was starting on the second string. The other was sitting, start on the first string. One was German bow, the other was French. One, the famous passage after the cadenza. One played vertical, the other played horizontals, because it's kind of I go with them. I go with them when I'm teaching. I have some students from who come from the system, like from Venezuela, and they come here and they're like, teacher, maestro, the fingerings. And like, I have no fingerings. I need to, we need to learn together the piece. So I have never fingerings. I don't have any piece fingered. I work with the student. So that's the approach, is a little bit more respecting the student's own needs, not dwelling on the past too much. Simplicity. People get overwhelmed with the book sometimes. Wow, you have 19 positions for tone position. That's too much. That's complicated. And I tell, no, man, that's to simplify things. The less you have, the less options you have, the hardest you make to yourself. So I'm heavily influenced by martial arts. I did a lot of kung fu. So that influenced me a lot, that philosophy. So that's an overview of why I came with the word Tao. It's heavily influenced by Tao Jet Kundo, the Bruce Lee book and approach. So that's the concept. Yeah.
I love it. I love that you're not just passing. I mean, I think how many students have I just passed the same set of photocopied fingerings of the Bodzine you can share it out, right? And
I never understand that. Yeah,
I don't know. That's a beautiful, and that's what it's all about. Just that individualized approach, because we're so different, you know.
Exactly. It makes my life a little bit more complicated, you know. My life would be much easier, man, if a student comes to lesson playing like Bottesini, okay, and look, here it is, play like this. That's my fingering. No, it makes my life a little bit more interesting, I would say. Not difficult, interesting, because I participate with the learning process. And many things that I developed on the book, I learned from students. Mm-hmm. Of course, I learned by their needs, their strengths. I have some students that are fantastic, you know, vertical, others are very good horizontally with the bow, it's smooth. And so you learn with those different approaches.
Marcos, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was great to chat with you. Folks, check out this book. It is so cool. Can't wait for the rest of the volumes of Tao of Bass. MarcosMachado.com will take you to everything. And that's going to do it for another episode of Contrebasse Conversations. Thank you so much for listening. Go to our website if you haven't been there before, ContrebasseConversations.com. Check out the quotes book that I put together featuring all the different guests that I've had over the years, or some of the different guests at this point, and some quotes that will be inspiring to you. The things that I feature at the beginning of the episode, those little snippets, I've got some of those in there. I've got some other quotes. ContrebasseConversations.com/quotes will take you there. And I put together an index. If you want to try to reference these hundreds of episodes, this index will be super helpful for that. You can sort by name, by release date, by institution that they teach at, by orchestra that they play in, and even by topic. So check that out, ContrebasseConversations.com/index. Thank you so much for following along, and we will see you again soon for more life at the low end of the spectrum.